Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.co's almost daily offering. I like to take Saturdays off, so I don't do a video on Saturday, but this is our Sunday sort of crypto specific because, oh my goodness, looks like we're alive on YouTube. Anyway, yeah, I know because I have the YouTube page up there just to confirm that it's going. So anyway, it is going. This is our weekend show. I have a team meeting here at the top of the hour, so probably only about maybe 40, 45 minutes here. But not a bad idea just to check in. I know a lot of people just like to sort of, okay, what the hell is Brian thinking now kind of idea. And these little video clips here is something to chew on a daily basis. Won't go too much into stock market and these broiler chicken shows. Really, this is all sort of a crypto. So we'll probably leave the dashboard for today. It is interesting to see the little crypto portfolio just sort of bumping along. We've taken a whole bunch of money out of the market. We've got about 40 some odd grand or so just sitting in cash. Actually, better part of 50 grand in cash and cash equivalents. And we've actually been buying quite a bit of the altcoins recently. Mind you, we did some selling too here over the weekend. We got fortunate on a couple names already, which was nice to see. But on balance, actually been doing a bit of buying within the Litecoin space and bought into a couple more names here over the weekend. So it's an active market. And if anything, in these videos, I usually like to give you one or two ideas to chew on. And actually going through the list this morning, I saw quite a few names that I'd be more than happy to start working some bids on. And other stories that we actually made reference to recently that I see are taking off now. So hopefully you get some good value out of this information. I think what I like to do is just sort of start off with, what the hell is Bitcoin doing on the higher time frames? As long as Bitcoin's still the big boy on the block, I think we're going to take our sort of general direction of the tone of the market from Bitcoin itself. We can see that this past week we made a new high. So, show me a new high and I'll show you a buy. I mean, I definitely don't think this is attractive trade location. But, it's still got the hallmarks of a bull market. If anything, probably really good example, good reference for you. Take screenshots of this. Of course, all students, you see this repeatedly at the yin yang with in our courses. But this idea of range extensions acting as resistance levels. And then also, too, this is we're actually really fortunate in crypto that we actually have assets that can go up fourfold increase on a regular basis. This isn't normal, guys. But if anything, this is a perfect hallmark to extreme venture capital and what venture capital can often and does often do. So seeing fourfold increases off of basis really shouldn't shock us. But at the same time, too, we also, try not to get too sucked into the euphoria on these events. If anything, we as professionals need to be thinking about maybe even taking some profits into these events. It was interesting just in the lounge this morning, I posted this chart and went, holy crap, what a doji. I mean, that is one hell of a doji week. Like a nice $400 or $500 range bar. And literally, you can see where we closed last week. We opened up at that level this weekly bar. And after all of that insanity, we're basically sitting exactly where we started. This does paint the potential for some sort of fractal top here. And I'm sure there's plenty of people looking at this going, holy crap, there could be a nice big fat empire that forms here where price actually has to come right back down to this level here to form the empire formation. So, just on balance, what is this level? That's like 32, 33, 3400 kind of idea. you know, it's interesting. We've been making reference to things like Goldman Sachs's research recently, and the person that's following Goldman's Bitcoin for Goldman Sachs seems to be a pretty big fan of our 38.2 concept. This tag here was a perfect 38.2 off of this range. And you can see where 38.2 is right now. It's sitting down here at about 3,000 bucks, just underneath $3,000. So make no mistake about it, guys. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. This is a market that's moved an awfully long way in a very, very short period of time. And at the very least, we're now starting to get anecdotal evidence that, hey, maybe I'm getting a little tired, right? Maybe I'm a little indecisive on direction right at the moment. And there's still some time left in the day, so it wouldn't surprise me. You know, it's now 10:30 here on the West Coast. This candle doesn't finish for another 6 hours or so. I could easily see them bump it up here a little bit, but I think just the general message of, you know, where we are on the weekly charts and what's going on with price action, I think it just generally makes sense. You know, if you are a Bitcoin bull and you're hunting buying opportunities, I don't have a problem, but you know, you better have a pretty damn good vetted trade setup and plan and everything. If we start drilling down to lower time frames, this is the daily chart that I like to work off of, to sort of give me short-term direction. There's a lot of really interesting messages that the market's trying to send us here, that I think, you know, it's worth our while as traders to listen. So be careful here, bulls. The first is, you know, I don't really like it when the moving averages get too far apart, because I know at some point they have to check themselves. And they may actually even go negative, right? These moving averages oscillate back and forth between negative and positive. So when the moving averages are sitting this far apart, believe it or not, my actual knee-jerk reaction is, oh boy, there's got to be some sort of cleanup here. So that's a bit problematic. I then go down and I look at my indicators, and I had even made reference in the previous post here about this, the fact that yes, the market made new highs here, but you can see on the OBV indicator, we did not make a new high here. And then we just went very politely put in this nasty little M, boobity boobity boo, on this, and that was also a divergence, and that was right off of this trend line. We've talked about this lots. As well, this was a Gann square of 9 level. And it's also a 1.618 fib extension level. So there's a lot of reasons technically why the market should stall up here. And, you know, location wise, and now we're starting to get really nasty messages. In fact, you could argue that that's a Davos signal. It's pretty well defined M up there in the price oscillator. And it's also a really nasty M there in the volume oscillator. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. You know, this game, it's a game of ebb and flow. We all have to understand that, right? Nothing ever goes up forever. At some point, there's you know, the ebb and then the flow. The question ultimately is, you know, off of these higher time frames, have we started to actually break down on a weekly basis? I don't think so. I think if anything, just like this scenario here, sometimes we just get a little too far too fast, and we got to spend a month or two just cleaning things up. And because this is Bitcoin and it's such a volatile asset, that cleanup can be some pretty damn wild price swings. So if we have to go through a cleanup process, what's sort of my expectation of what it might look like? But I did notice a couple things. I just went and drew this curve, this line here, the curve, just off of this low and connected it to this low and just said, what does that sort of look like price action wise? And I don't know, to me, I think 5,000 bucks. It's just got a big fat bullseye written across it on this thing. It's just such a big, fat, round, psychological number I would be surprised, it's just purely speculation and purely hunch, but I would be really surprised if we didn't hit this 5,000 bucks. Kind of like when Bitcoin at its original rally, $1,000 was just such a big, fat psychological target. I think that that's where we need to go. There's some guy, Jeremy, was posting his link the earlier video, saying he thinks that Bitcoin goes to like 68.88 or some crazy ass number like that. I don't know what the hell this blow off top looks like. But I just found it interesting. If I took this curve and just simply overlaid it, connecting these two lows, it produced this line here. And notice that this was John Bollinger's bottom call. There was our recent fractal bottom, and man, was it vicious. What would sort of a check of that line look like? So that sort of paints a correction window here going out into sort of middle of September. I also noticed too that if I do just a simple fib off of this range alone, 38.2 sitting there at about 3,500 bucks, which just so happens to also be the 30 SMA right at the moment. And lastly, when I sort of look at it from the profile, you can see there's a little mini profile that's developing here to here. So there's lots of unfinished business all around this node here, which just so happens to be 38.2. We could also slam, you can really see that, in this particular case, they're not including these nodes in value, but, I mean, gee whiz, that's a hell of a lot of volume in there. What this really says to me is that key buying support's around that 3,000 area, right? Which just so happens to be 61.8. But market's never going to go in a straight line. And if anything, what I kind of noticed about this top was it's very sort of V-top-ish. So when I drill down to lower time frames, I'm kind of thinking there's like one of two scenarios. Either scenario A, this turns out to be a very well orchestrated top, and I'd be looking for, there's that big fat Gann square of 9 level that we've talked about. I'd be looking for a stab up into this reload zone against this high, against these highs, against this high, against the original market structure top. And do you see how that carves out kind of a big ass head and shoulders here, right? So I'm kind of thinking that this is a very realistic sort of scenario in my eyes. Something along these lines. That's very rough. Somewhere up into there, something like that. And we have a whole bunch of open orders. We'll look at the chart next. To short this, I noticed that they left a very cheeky little price gap right here at about 42.83 on stamp here, which just so happens to be right in that reload zone. So, any kind of rally to fill in that gap, and of course, nice little, look how close it is to that Gann square of 9 level. Any kind of rally to fill in that gap, I actually think represents a half decent risk against these old highs. To me, that's very respectable risk reward. So I am watching for that. But at the same time, I do acknowledge, sometimes markets just don't cooperate, and it sucks. So I have also acknowledged here, hopefully you can see, that this might just be a bot short setup. Where market needs to pull back at least 33%, but no more than 66, which it's done that. And now you can start to see if we clone this range off of these highs, gee whiz, look how 25% is setting up nice and politely here. And guess what? This is a trader's life. There's no guarantees. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. And if anything, here's, this wouldn't be the same example. Well, maybe it would be. Where we might have a situation in this case where Brandon and I were sitting in the prop firm. Mind you, it really wouldn't. But maybe, hypothetically, tough to say. Brandon might buy that 61.8. Mind you, I think he probably would have bailed here. But let's say hypothetically we dip down into here and then went sideways. And so he might be long here, looking for a bounce back up top. And I might be hunting bought shorts here and actually wanting to go short and looking for the market to head lower. So, you know, really what you have to do is you have to identify what type of trader you are. What are you, a range trader? Are you a trend continuation trader? What setups do you trade? If you do trade both, then you're going to be awfully conflicted here. My suggestion is probably it's in your best interest to be either one or the other and just live with the setups. I suppose one could also argue too, there's nothing wrong with anybody who wanted to be a range trader just simply hunting long opportunities. I was watching this, and I think we have one site member, Kevin, who said that he had some stink bids working in here. I wonder how he did on that trade. You can see they didn't make this bottom easy at all, did they? And this is so typical trading, guys, especially off of things like hourly charts. There's no reason why these lows have to hold. And if anything, this is a great anecdote of Sebastian's SFU setup, right, where you actually step into the breach. Let's say you had identified that low. You actually end up stepping into the breach and buying right here. And the interesting thing about that is that you really didn't take a hell of a lot of risk on this trade, did you? Tough trade to take, though, right? You just, every time it dips down here, like, oh God, am I going to lose my house? Oh, no. Whew, okay. Oh God, am I going to lose my house? Oh, okay, it was another trap, fuckers. So, I mean, just really, you got to identify what kind of trader you are, build your plan, and just stick to your plan like a son of a gun. And I've, in recent videos, I've often given shouts out to Sebastian because he's done that. And it's very impressed with the hard work he's put in. But anyway, really good example of where the SFU would actually have you long from these levels. And interestingly enough, too, good old line in the sand. Should it surprise us that that's a trade level? What would be really cool is if we pulled up a volume profile and we found that these moves were into single ticks. That would be sort of like the ultimate icing on the cake. Let's see. What happens if we do that? Oh, not bad. There's some single ticks down there. I bet on first initial stabs. Oh, look at that. You can see nice single ticks in the profile down there. So, yeah, really interesting trade location to take a long shot down here. But you can see, man, they really tested the bull's resolve in earnest. Very, very painful process. Okay, sorry, I got a bit off topic there, as I am apt to do. So, two scenarios. And just sort of FYI for the site, we have, and interestingly enough, looking back in hindsight, we let I think 5 Bitcoins go up in this area, up in here. So it's funny how when the market's breaking into highs, everybody's like, "Oh God, I can't believe you sold." And then the market breaks down. Oh my God, you're so smart, right? And it just goes back and forth, back and forth. I don't know whether I really want to be a net seller of too many more Bitcoins right now. Mind you, we did just get handed a big chunk of Bitcoins from profit trades. But I think at this point, I'm more thinking along the lines that I'd like to try and get some short setups working on things like OKCoin. And Julian and his RSI model is working really, really well. In essence, the RSI model, it broke down last week, and I think on balance, this M right here was the super duper monster sell signal, which produced this move, very respectable move. And if anything, I was sort of musing last time we looked at this chart, what this sort of triangle might look like. Interesting how we're just sort of oscillating right at this 50% level. I'm not quite sure how to interpret this. If anything, it's probably not a bad idea that Julie and I, we're having a meeting here in about 40 minutes, and we'll probably review what we're thinking. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if Julian's actually starting to think bull again here. And considering, the move through the 50 line here, we've often talked about that. You can really see the battle right here. RSI-wise, if we actually can break this and move through the top of this M here, that's actually suggesting more up over the short term. I suppose one could argue trade location-wise, there's 50% of the range, and of course that's going to be off this original structural level. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag. Actually, I'm a little surprised to see that hourly M up in there. And then, when we go over to, I'm going to keep a close eye on this. And like I said, Julie and I will have our meeting and we'll sort of review what we should be thinking here. But when we go back up to the higher time frames and we look at the dailies, oh boy, this really concerns me. So, you never know how these things are going to break. But, when we start seeing like multiple signs of divergence, this gets bothersome. So this whole rally to new highs, you can see, was not on a new momentum push. So that's problematic. And then just even this little rally to new highs, it was also on a divergence, and that divergence confirmed its failure on the break of this uptrend line on RSI. So very, very troublesome break here. Now, the problem with RSI that I found, of course, is this is a price momentum measurement tool. So just because it's done that, kind of like here, you go, oh, gee whiz, there's a big M, this thing's toast. And then the goddamn market moves to new highs here, and you're like, what the fuck? I thought this thing was supposed to be going down. So be careful on, what's the word I'm looking for? Inferring too much information out of here. But technically speaking, price momentum wise, this is problematic. Technically speaking, if somebody was interviewing me on one of these financial channels, I would say, technically speaking, this is problematic. This is not the signs of a healthy bull market. This is the signs of, uh-oh, there's trouble brewing. Now, one thing that I noticed on these charts, which actually caught my attention, and why I'm not like, well, panic, fill everything, is that they actually, first and foremost, we don't really see it on OKCoin, but I definitely saw it on things like this is the tether. Do you notice how there's a big juicy gap right here? Right in the reload short zone. Doink. Well, you can see that or not. So because of this, I'm thinking that they want to revisit this level. That's why I haven't been sort of like, oh, everything's going to collapse. I still think this is the scenario they're playing out. And then also remember, too, if Bitcoin's going to top out here, are they going to let the New York boys, or the London boys, are they going to let Bitcoin break here without giving them the opportunity to get short? No. Right? I mean, you guys hopefully have been dealing with me long enough. You understand that most of the time price action is completely set up so that the institutions make a fortune. So, when I see things like this, our reload zone concept, top of valley, you can see this big valley right here. I could even see a nice little tag of up here. And then we went after the stops kind of talk up in here. So I'm still thinking there needs to be some play up in this area. And I think that's what needs to happen this coming week. I've got, and what's interesting about this original setup, and I was just so stunned to see how this works. If anything, guys, perfect example of Davo. Can everybody see the W up, or excuse me, the M up here and the M up here? Hopefully you can see those M's. Beautiful momentum divergence failure through here. little bit tough to take that momentum failure trade. And if anything, that's probably what stalled me a little bit from really jumping all over this, is I was looking for that counter trend rally after this momentum failure to get the trade on, but it just never came in. And what really bummed me out about this damn trade was you can see there's the 50% level. So if we had worked the order at that 50% level, we would have been filled. And you know what kills you too is even Mountain Man got filled there, right? But I'm sitting there at my 78.6 line in the sand going, no, I'm a cheap bastard. I don't want to go. I don't want to go, right? And the fuckers wouldn't fill me. Then isn't that interesting? Can you guys see how it rallied right up to Mountain Man? And Mountain just said, get your ass down. So I missed the trade. What can you do, son of a bitch? I know Julian's I'm gonna spend like literally the first 15 minutes. Julian's gonna be like, I told you we're supposed to get that. So anyway, I suppose I deserve it. But anyway, I still think because of the gaps up top there, I still think you know, can you guys kind of see, and I don't know whether I did this in the video or not, but I was showing this earlier to somebody. Can you kind of see the head and shoulders-y type action that looks like it's trying to form here? And of course, we've got this big FUD event coming up on the 23rd. So I'm kind of thinking that, and actually I wouldn't be surprised too, if we actually get a little bit of a rally in Bitcoin into this crazy solar eclipse nonsense, that might actually produce new highs. It's tough to say, but I could very easily see that, and then you know, maybe a nice little counter trend rally here into the beginning of the week. Let all the London and New York boys get short at the appropriate level, and then we'll see whether this top is for real or not. But I'm kind of thinking this is the way it needs to play out. And given those gaps that I talked about earlier, like right up here on Stamp, you can see there's a nice juicy gap right there that needs filling right in the reload short zone. So I'm leaning, and maybe even you could even say to a certain degree, kind of hoping that this is what happens with price action so I can join the short trade. Okay, that's a mouthful. Sure hope everybody understood what the hell I was just barking about there. Ethereum's just kind of gone sideways here, probably driving everybody crazy. It's a big hurry up and do nothing. And if anything, you know, we say the longer the channel, the bigger the run. If this thing starts putting in, we've got 1 kilo, 2 kilos. If we start putting in another, you could actually start drawing new bot setups here if you wanted to play the long side. And isn't that funny? I don't know how that Nico guy did, but I sure hope he covered his shorts down in here. I remember he was all rah short there, and this thing has just been driving the shorts crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if this son of a bitch puts in a bottom here and heads back up top. There should also be a big Ethereum date coming up here in like late September. Don't they have like a big annual meeting kind of thing? So maybe watch out for that, you know, as the sort of fundamental catalyst. Do I personally have a trade setting up here? For me, no, there's nothing really I'm doing. If anything, we were just keeping an eye on this for like 4-hour people. We had a bunch of these charts on here. We had, this is the US dollar proxy, and so you can see the new AB equals CD. That, you know, wouldn't that be a kick in the pants? All the people that called the top on Ethereum, this son of a bitch goes and makes a new all-time high. That would be hilarious, right? I don't know, maybe not right. Maybe completely wrong. I don't know. But there to there. And if we do consolidate here, yeah, look at that. That would take us up to new highs, eh? Wouldn't that be hilarious? God, that's so funny. So there is that floating out there, right? Let's see what she looks like relative to the Bitcoins. Playing with the Mountain Man level here. Wow. Oh boy, sure don't like the look of that. Maybe it goes up because Bitcoin also goes up. I don't know. But gee whiz, that looks problematic. Don't know whether I'd be too. Oh, yeah, this is Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think if anything versus Bitcoin, I'd like to just. I think I got to leave this thing alone, to be honest with you. That's scary. Jeez, that's incredible. Oh, actually, that's not so bad. So you can definitely see there's a lot of unfinished business down in this reload zone. This isn't a trade I would even remotely consider. Okay, let's head on over to altcoins. I thought it was interesting in our weekly summary. We actually were talking about Lisk changing its name last week. We made reference to that. And sure enough, I think you're getting some sort of, by the rumor sort of event here. It started late yesterday. And you can see, and really if we just, for all the traders in the audience, this hopefully is starting to get a little repetitious now. Hopefully you can see 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows, 5 lows, 6 lows, 7 lows, 8 lows. I don't know whether, I don't think they want to go through this level. And really, you want to make this really simple. You can even just say, you know what, there's the top end of the range, there's the bottom end of the range. This is an hourly price chart. And of course, this battle is all happening right down here, right? And if we look at the entire range, I suppose, what do you think the odds are this is in a reload zone? Not bad. Didn't quite get down to 78.6. But I don't think it should surprise us that this kind of thing happened here. If anything, now we've got an absolutely beautiful bullish divergence confirmed now. I think a lot of people got suckered into buying into the bullish divergence that developed off of here. And then that rally, this was the rally that ensued out of that. Then it quickly broke down, went to new lows. Another massive divergence, really big one now, is totally confirmed. I think, quote unquote, the bottom is in. Does it make sense chasing it here? Absolutely not. If anything, if you want to be a buyer, my advice would be to go grab your reload zone tool. Where the hell's the damn top here? All right, so we can see the original bottom. And even you could argue even off of this level as well, right there. So my hunch is 78.6 is going to be sort of down in this area, especially with the way the POC looks here. So we go zoobity zoo. So there's 78.6. It is a tag of that notch there, but I don't really have a problem. Just work your bids down in here. You can see on the hourlies, can you see how the momentum is starting to wane here? So for God's sakes, don't chase this. And if anything, I see a little price gap right there. That's definitely a level that's going to need some attention. So, yeah, let the market settle its way back down into this zone and then put your spidey senses on and get really jazzed for hunting divergences and double bottoms off of this area down in here. So, interesting looking names. Finally starting to turn the corner. All right, let's see what we got here. Hey, Brian, can you look at the different time frame gaps on shift? Did we do that? I seem to recall we did that. And por favor. Well, I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to go into a full GAN study. What I'll just simply say is, first and foremost, if you're going to measure your coin off of something like Bitcoin, GAN levels become extremely difficult because there's multiple moving parts. If anything, I would recommend that you try and do your analysis off of US dollar denominated assets, because then that way at least the US dollar is relatively stable. But if we just do something like, say, Bitcoin, just a real quick walkthrough on, say, Stamp. First and foremost, the most important thing with GAN, of course, is squaring your charts. So I would recommend that you take your little, where is it? Here it is here. Price, date, range, and we want to create a 1-by-1 grid. So if you're going to go 30 bars, then really I would say you've got to go $30. If you want to go 10 bars, you got to go $10. The point here is that usually TradingView, it isn't going to square the charts naturally for you, because what they want to try and do is try and make the chart most user friendly. And, you know, especially with assets that move up egregiously, how can we put all this price data on a price chart and have this chart square? So you can see just that present. This is $11 for $10 in price, and it produces this funny little box. Certainly not a square. So what you got to do is you got to take your chart, and ideally you'd like this to be just nice round numbers. Just make it easy on yourself. So I'll just go 68.92, so then that way we know it's a nice round number and it's 10 by 10. And you got to literally drag your chart up until it looks like a box. So how do you confirm that it is a box? You take your trend angle tool, you go on one angle of the chart and you drag it down to the other, and this line has to be 45 degrees. If it's 45 degrees, then you know that it is squared. So there's 45 degrees, and you can see that it's not quite there. I'm going to drag it a little bit more. Now, you might be saying to me, Brian, that's so small. How can I tell that that's 45 degrees? Well, just now lock your scale in place. Zoom in so you can see the box a little clearer. And just confirm that your 45-degree angle is a 45-degree angle. So you can see by us zooming in, we can see that, well, it turns out we didn't even have the angle right on. Now it's sort of right on. And if we take this down 45 degrees, then we see, oh, look at that. I was actually off. So now we got to go back and unlock the scale. So then we can move it again. Now it's 45 degrees, and we're basically good to go. If you want to get like super, super detailed, fine by me. The more detailed you are, the happier Mr. Gann is. But in essence, 45 degrees, nice square. We can lock that scale now. Now we know that this chart has been squared. And when you look at the chart that's squared, it doesn't really make any sense, does it? What use is that? It's just so typical, right? And the problem is, again, didn't live in the same world that we live in with computers. So there is your perfectly squared chart. What I suggest you do at this point is you want to go and find key pivots. So if we look back in time, there is this squared chart. It looks very natural, very normal. And what I would recommend you do now is go and take your square and start drawing in levels, right? Especially off of this key high. You know that was the key high. So there is a perfectly good square. You can use the magnet button to try and help you lock it into place. And then what I'd also suggest you do, which is kind of fun, is replicate that exact same square. And I've used the time reference. I've let the market give me reference to time. I'm going to just simply go off of the extreme high of that move down to the reaction low. So now this is the cadence of the market. And do you see, guys, and this is really important, do you see how by me just listening to the market, just on this initial move here, it actually told us way ahead of time what it was going to do through here. You see that? The market, this move up and this move down actually predicted everything else that was going to happen here. Yeah, Daniel, well, this is what you get to look forward to in level 2. We do lots and lots of this fun stuff. So the point here is what I like to do for fun is I'm going to actually replicate that study above. And now we get sort of a multi-dimensional look at the way price and time should move together through this, basically the market telling us what its cadence is. Now, for us to make sense out of this, we got to go back to that regular chart. So what we want to do here is, first off, let's go in and just make sure that we have our levels accurate. That one's accurate, but this one isn't. So I want to make sure that's right. Right, and then by me moving that, let's make sure that these lines line up. Ooh, look at that, pretty close, not bad. Oh, there we go. I think for our purposes, that's good. Now, all right, so now we're going to go and lock these into place, because keep in mind, all these are is reference points. That's all they are. So we'll lock that into place, and then we'll take the bottom one and we'll lock it into place. All right, so we have our study set up. We're all locked. Now let's go and actually create this chart, right? We'll go back to, we'll get rid of lock scale. We'll go to auto scale. And now it produces a chart that we can actually look at, right? So now it's zooming in and out. And what's cool is, right, look how you can basically use these GAN levels now to help you. What a coincidence. Hey, we just ran into a GAN level. This is actually, the level twoers just did this. Garrett, you're here. What do horizontal levels on the square tell us? I think you got this right on the exam. So you can see how it acted as major resistance here and support here, and actually blew through this one, but look how it acted as major resistance up here. The arcs themselves are actually the speed bumps. Garrett, tisk tisk. Heavens to Gertrude. Anyway, so somebody was asking for a quick crash course on how to do GAN angles. There you go. Merry Christmas. All right, let's move forward. And just a heads up, if you're going to do GAN angles on your charts, understand that too many GAN angles will cause your computer to blow up. They are extremely memory intensive. So just be warned. All right. So somebody asked me to look at that. I remember from Friday they asked me. RLC, I think I was a recent buyer of that recently. RLC, how are we doing on time? Oh, it's 11 o'clock. Okay, so okay, so I guess today's Broiler Chicken show will just be more about GAN and doing GAN studies than anything specific coin-wise. Okay, let's see what we got here. Do we lock this guy on? I like what I'm seeing down here. Pretty attractive. Nice Momo. Nice volume. Looks good, Raf. I think I was a buyer down in this area, and frankly speaking, I wouldn't mind actually going and maybe working a couple more bids to buy in off of these tails. Not a bad idea, Raf. If you're watching this later. ETH, we look at that lots. DCY, big crystals. Actually, I noticed that one as well. That's another one that I saw this morning. Very interested in this one. Uh-oh, it's already taken off here, right? Look at that beautiful, cute little W trying to come in here. So, you know, if you want to be nice and conservative, just wait for the W to come in, then work your stink bid. Really, because of trade location, I remember I was talking about this at length on these, you know, coinage shows that we used to do. I don't mind taking nibbles off of this every day of the week. If you want to time your purchases, maybe just let this W come in. In fact, what you'd really love to see is a nice clothesline W. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled. Definitely thinking in the right direction. I think there's money to be made here. You can see just below value to above value, that's going to give you a double. So really, in fact, a double from these levels would just be a return to the POC and just eating this wick up here. That's a perfectly good name as far as I'm concerned. AVL on the TSX. Oh, interesting. That is Anvil, isn't it? AVL, Anvil. AVL on the T. Avalon Advanced Minerals. What do we got here? Ooh, very sexy. Nice location. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with taking nibbles off of this thing. Is this the problem with venture cap and these penny stocks is it starts trading like this. This is what we call block trading. It's very thin trading. So not the most liquid of names here, but trade location, not bad. Maybe work your stink bids considering the time of year down below value here. 13 cents though, really, I don't think you can go wrong. Just go grab a friendly 10. $1,350, 2025 up in here is going to give you a nice double. Get yourself some free stock. Nice 5,000 shares free on the books. Jeez, man, that could make you a shitload of money. So, very good idea. Look at that OBV divergence. Wow, there's a shitload of money to be made on this one. So, everybody, thank you very much for the idea. I do believe we have our idea for the broiler chicken show, and it's not even a broiler chicken, it's a stock. That's actually very interesting looking little coin there. But it's not a coin, it's a stock. Okay, I've got to wind the show up because basically the guys are waiting for me to have a team meeting. We got through a chunk of them. We already did ETH a couple times. We've done list. PIVX is basically a play off of Dash. So I think if anything, we saw Dash perk up here recently, so it shouldn't surprise us that PIVX looking better. Yeah, look at that. Dash is, and if anything, we talked about this earlier, how Dash, this is the summer of crypto. What do you think, guys? Does this seem like the summer of crypto? I think that's Julian saying, you've talked long enough. You have to hang up now. Oh, it's Christine McDougall. That's hilarious. So, summer of Dash, summer of Sideways, summer of Hurry Up and Go Nothing. Okay. I think if I'm not mistaken, PIVX is trying to come off its lows as well. Yeah, same sort of thing. Can you guys see the similarities? And if anything, nice little momentum signals on PIVX. I was looking at this earlier today, The only reason why I really don't want to buy into this thing is because it's just so far off its lows. If it does lose this area, you can see there's just a world of drop that could happen here. So long and short of it here is, oh, Jesus, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Bottom end of the range, if you want to take a shot against these lows and risk against these lows, it's not a terrible idea. Considering all the fun little coins that we have that are zipping up on volume and momentum, and, just like Dash, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing rallies back up to the top end of its trading range. So, traders got to trade. If you find a setup that works in here, great, go for it. I think there's better fish to fry. It's just my personal opinion. All right, I think I'm gonna have to leave it at that. We're about 5-10 minutes over now. Chicken's in the oven. Yeah. So I'll post this on the site, but if anybody asks, please, be a peach and give them a shout out and help them out. Maybe, well, depending on how Liam's feeling, but if the evening goes well, maybe we'll even just do another one later on tonight if I want to do an update. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. All the best, and bye for now.